I hope that he wasn't scared, that it all happened pretty quickly for him.
Once you get married, all of a sudden it turns out to be a different person in some respects.
For decades, fans have guessed about the private life of John Denver, the legendary singer whose songs captured hearts worldwide. Questions about his relationships, inspirations, and personal moments swirled endlessly. Now, at 78, Annie Denver, his first wife, has finally broken her silence, putting long-standing rumors to rest. Her revelations promise to shed light not just on their passionate yet complicated love story, but also on the man behind the melodies. Could what she revealed change everything we thought we knew about John Denver? Join us in this video as we discuss the details. Annie Denver speaks out on rumors surrounding John Denver. John Denver was known by many people as a calm and gentle voice in music, especially during the 70s. At that time, music was changing in many ways, but he found his own path by mixing simple sounds from pop, folk, and country music. What made him stand out was not just the way he sang, but also the kind of feelings he put into his songs. His music often spoke about love, peace, and nature, and many people felt connected to those words in a very deep and personal way. He was not loud or flashy, but still, he became one of the most loved singers of his time. Over time, he released songs that slowly began to reach more and more people. Some of these songs became very popular and are still remembered today. One of them was Take Me Home, Country Roads, which many people came to see as a song that felt like home. Another song, Annie's song, was softer and more emotional, and it carried a very personal meaning. There was also Leaving on a Jet Plane, which spoke about leaving and longing, and Rocky Mountain High, which showed his deep love for nature and the outdoors. These songs helped shape his image and made people see him as someone who truly meant every word he sang. At the same time, in another part of the story, Annie Denver was living a quiet life in Minnesota. She was born Annie Martell on September 6, 1946, and she grew up in a simple and structured home. Her family followed the Christian faith, and she was raised alongside her siblings in a way that taught her discipline, values, and a strong sense of identity. She attended local schools and lived a normal life, just like many others around her. There was nothing at that time that clearly showed she would one day be connected to a famous musician. As she grew older, she went on to college, and it was during this period that her life began to slowly change. In 1966, she met John Denver for the first time. He was performing with a musical group, and although it may have seemed like a simple meeting at first, it left a quiet but lasting impression. They did not immediately begin a relationship, but after meeting again some months later, things began to move in a different direction. They started communicating, and little by little, their connection grew stronger. Their relationship moved quite quickly, almost in a way that might seem surprising to some people. After only a short period of getting to know each other, they decided to take a big step. On June 9, 1967, they got married. It was a fast decision, but at that moment, it felt right for both of them. They stepped into marriage with hope, excitement, and the belief that they could build a life together. After their marriage, they eventually settled in Aspen, Colorado. This place became very important in their lives. It was calm, beautiful, and filled with natural surroundings that John Denver loved deeply. The mountains, the open air, and the peaceful environment all played a role in shaping both his music and their life together. It was there that they began to build their home and share their everyday experiences. During these early years, their relationship was not only about love, but also about growth and change. As John Denver's career began to rise, their life started to shift in ways they may not have fully expected. Still, at the beginning, there was a strong bond between them, and that bond became the foundation for many of the moments that would later define both their personal story and his music. But as their life together in Aspen continued to grow and change, and as love, music, and daily life began to mix in deeper and more complicated ways, one question stood out. What really happened behind the scenes that slowly started to pull them apart, despite everything they had built together? Let's delve deeper. Love, family, and the slow drift apart. As time went on, John Denver and Annie Denver's marriage kept moving forward, but it wasn't always smooth. Like most relationships, they had their share of tension, small arguments, and moments where they just didn't understand each other. Still, they had something real, and for a long time, they held on to it. One of the biggest things that came out of their relationship was Annie's song. A lot of people think it was written during some perfect romantic moment, but that's not really how it happened. In 1973, they had a disagreement. Nothing unusual, just one of those moments couples go through. After a while, things settled down, and they made peace. Later that day, John went skiing in Aspen, like he often did. Up there, surrounded by the mountains and quiet, he had time to think. Everything slowed down. The argument, the emotions, the love he still felt. It all kind of came together at once. When he got back home, he picked up his guitar and wrote Annie's song. It came out fast, almost too fast. In about 10 minutes, it was done. It started as something simple, just a way to express how he felt. But over time, it became more than that. It carried a deeper feeling, something closer to a quiet prayer than just a love song. For Annie, that song never lost its meaning. Even years later, she admitted it could still make her emotional. It wasn't just a song she heard on the radio. It was personal. It reminded her of what they had, both the good and the difficult parts. Some memories just stay with you like that. As the years passed, they had tried to build a family together. They couldn't have children on their own, which wasn't easy to deal with. It's the kind of thing that affects people deeply, even if they don't always talk about it. Instead of letting it break them, they made a different choice. They adopted. They brought 2 children into their lives, Zachary John and Anna Kate. Raising them gave their home a sense of warmth and purpose. There were normal, everyday moments, nothing fancy, just family life. For a while, things felt steady, but at the same time, John's career was growing fast. The more successful he became, the more time he had to spend away. Tours, shows, travel, it never really stopped. He was gone a lot, and that kind of distance slowly started to show. At first, maybe it didn't seem like a big deal, but over time, being apart for so long made things harder. It's not easy to stay close when you're rarely in the same place. John later admitted that his work played a big role in their problems. When they were together again, it didn't always feel natural. Things had shifted. Annie saw it a bit differently. She felt they had gotten married too young. Back then, they probably didn't expect life to change so quickly. The fame, the attention, everything that came with it, it was a lot. At some point, she started to feel like she had lost herself in all of it. Little by little, these things added up. There wasn't one single moment where everything fell apart. It was more gradual than that. They still respected each other, but the connection they once had just wasn't the same anymore. In 1982, after 15 years together, they decided to separate. It wasn't loud or dramatic. There wasn't a big public fight. They just reached a point where going their separate ways made more sense. What really stands out is how they handled it. There was no bitterness put on display, no long public conflict, just a quiet understanding that sometimes things change, even when there was real love in the beginning. And after all the time, the memories, and everything they went through together, what was the final moment that truly pushed their relationship past the point of no return? Keep watching to find out. The breaking point and the silence that followed. As the marriage between John Denver and Annie Denver slowly began to fall apart, things did not end quietly or simply. Instead, the final stage of their relationship became filled with strong emotions, tension, and moments that showed just how much pain both of them were dealing with deep inside. What once started as love, hope, and shared dreams had, over time, turned into something much more difficult and much more complicated. One moment in particular stood out more than anything else during this period. It was a moment that many people later found shocking, confusing, and even hard to believe. During the process of their divorce, when emotions were already high and things were already very fragile, John Denver did something that clearly showed how overwhelmed he had become. In a moment of anger and deep frustration, he used a chainsaw to cut apart the marital bed that he and Annie once shared together. This was not something small or symbolic in a quiet way. It was loud, physical, and very real. The bed itself was not just a piece of furniture. It represented their life together, their shared space, their memories, and their connection as husband and wife. So for him to destroy it in such a dramatic way showed just how much emotion he was carrying at that time. It was as if all the pain, anger, and confusion inside him came out in that one action. But this moment did not come from nowhere. It did not just happen without a reason or without something building up behind it. There had already been a lot of tension between them. There were disagreements, hurt feelings, and emotional distance that had grown over time. One of the reported causes of that final outburst had to do with trees on their property in Aspen. These trees had been cut down without John's approval, and this deeply upset him. For John Denver, nature was not just something he liked. It was something he felt strongly connected to. It was part of who he was. So, when those trees were cut, it felt like more than just a simple disagreement. It felt personal. It added to the stress and the emotional weight he was already carrying. And in that already tense and painful moment, his reaction became extreme. Later on, John Denver did not try to deny what he had done. Instead, he admitted that during that period of his life, he was struggling in many ways. He spoke about his anger, about losing control at times, and about how difficult things had become for him emotionally. He acknowledged that he was not always able to handle his feelings in a calm or steady way. This moment, the chainsaw incident, became a clear example of that struggle. While all of this was happening, Annie Denver chose a very different path. Even though she had every reason to speak out, to defend herself, or to share her side of the story, she did not do so. She stayed quiet. She stayed calm. She did not go to the public with accusations or painful details. Instead, she carried her experiences privately, choosing not to turn their personal struggles into something for public discussion. This silence was not because nothing had happened. It was not because everything was fine. It was a choice. It was a decision to handle things with dignity and care. For many years, Annie Denver kept her thoughts and feelings to herself. She did not try to damage John Denver's image, even when stories about their marriage continued to circulate. When she finally spoke many years later, her words were not filled with anger or bitterness. Instead, they were calm, thoughtful, and honest. If their love was tested by fame, distance, and heartbreak, how did Annie and John navigate the challenges of building a family and finding moments of hope amidst the struggle? Let's find out. Love before fame and life after. Long before the fame, the pressure, and the struggles that later came into their lives, the relationship between John Denver and Annie Denver started in a much simpler and softer way. It began in a time when things were not complicated, when there were no large crowds, no constant travel, and no public expectations. It began with small moments, quiet conversations, and something very personal: letters. After they first met, their connection began to grow through written words. They wrote letters to each other, sharing their thoughts, their feelings, and their hopes. These letters were not rushed. They were not forced. They were simple and honest. Through those letters, they slowly built something real, something that felt strong at the time. One detail that stands out from that early period is something Annie Denver chose to do. She kept the very first love letter that John Denver wrote to her. She did not hide it away or forget about it. Instead, she kept it close, even placing it somewhere she could see it often. This was not just about holding on to paper. It was about holding on to a memory, a moment, a feeling from a time when everything felt new and full of possibility. That letter became a symbol of what their relationship once was. It reminded her of a time before things became difficult, before fame entered their lives, before distance, pressure, and challenges began to change things. It showed that at one point their love was simple, direct, and deeply felt. As time moved forward, and as their lives changed, that early simplicity slowly faded. The demands of John Denver's career grew, and with it came stress, time apart, and emotional distance. The connection that once felt easy began to feel strained, and eventually their marriage came to an end. After the divorce, John Denver did not remain alone. In 1988, he married Cassandra Delaney. At the time, this new relationship seemed like a fresh beginning. It looked like a chance for him to start again and build something new. However, this second marriage did not follow the path many might have expected. It faced its own set of problems. It was not stable, and over time, the challenges within the relationship became more noticeable. While they had a daughter together, which was an important part of their lives, the relationship itself did not last. The marriage eventually ended after a few years. Reports from that time suggested that there were tensions and emotional difficulties, similar in some ways to what had happened before. This showed that even though he had moved forward, some of the deeper struggles in his personal life had not fully gone away. How did John's own journey, his music, and personal experiences shape the legacy we remember today? Let's take a closer look. John Denver, Life, Music, and Legacy. John Denver was born Henry John Deutschendorf Jr. on December 31, 1943, in Roswell, New Mexico. He grew up in a military family and moved often because of his father's job as a pilot. His father was strict and not very affectionate, which made John a quiet and thoughtful child. Moving so much also made it hard for him to make friends. When he was 11, his grandmother gave him an acoustic guitar, and he taught himself how to play. By the time he was in college, he was performing at local clubs. He later changed his name to John Denver, a simpler stage name suggested by Randy Sparks, the founder of the New Christy Minstrels. Denver started his career in music in the 60s. He joined the Chad Mitchell Trio, which gave him experience performing and touring. Later, he decided to go solo and released his first album, Rhymes and Reasons, in 1969. One of the songs, Leaving on a Jet Plane, became very popular after being sung by Peter, Paul, and Mary. His big success came in 1971 with the album Poems, Prayers, and Promises, which included Take Me Home, Country Roads. He also released Rocky Mountain High and Annie's Song. These songs showed his talent for mixing folk, pop, and country music, and his lyrics expressed love, nature, and life experiences. He became well known on TV too, hosting shows like Rocky Mountain Christmas, and later his own BBC series, The John Denver Show. He won many awards, including Grammy Awards and American Music Awards, becoming one of the most popular singers of the 70s. Denver's life in Colorado, especially Aspen, was very important. In 1971, he and his wife Annie Martell visited Aspen on a camping trip. He loved the mountains, which inspired songs like Rocky Mountain High. Despite his success, Denver faced personal struggles. He admitted using alcohol, LSD, and marijuana, and sometimes suffered from depression. In the early 90s, he was convicted of drunk driving, and the FAA limited his ability to fly planes. His marriages also faced challenges, showing how fame and work affected his personal life. Tragically, John Denver died on October 12, 1997, at age 53. He was piloting a Rutan Long-EZ light aircraft when it crashed into Monterey Bay near Pacific Grove, California. Investigators found that the plane had design problems, like a badly placed fuel valve and hard-to-read fuel gauges, which contributed to the crash. Even though his life ended too soon, John Denver is remembered for his music, love of nature, and humanitarian work. Songs like Take Me Home, Country Roads, and Rocky Mountain High continue to inspire fans around the world, proving that his work is timeless. What do you think about the rumors surrounding John Denver? Share your thoughts in the comments section below. Thank you for following the inspiring and emotional journey of John Denver, the legendary singer whose music and love for life continue to touch hearts. If his story moved you, don't forget to like and subscribe. Click the next video on your screen to discover more fascinating stories of iconic musicians and the lives behind their songs. See you there.